Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Paint with Sean. So, today we are continuing where we left off with our step by step painting. So, we are going to go through individual steps in each one of these videos and show you a technique for a piece of the painting and really just focus on that for that video. So, in our last one, if you didn't watch it, we just did an undercoat of gesso, white gesso, to get the canvas nice and wet, and then we did 4 color variations across here. You can sort of see how they are. And blended them together for a background of a sky. And this may not look like a typical sky, and that's okay. You can paint your world however you want, but there's a lot of cool light refractions and things that go on in the sky. So I've seen it in every color. So today we are going to focus on clouds. Now, the smaller things are, the farther away they look. So we want to keep these fairly small today to allow them to look far away. And we're going to build a lot of layers within this painting so that you can see some real distance in some things and some other stuff that looks a lot closer. So we're going to build some really small clouds. So we're going to use our fan brush today, and I've got black, some of the darker blue that we used in this color here, the regular blue, this is just stock out of the bottle, and white. And those are the only colors I'm really going to use today. Mostly it will be white, but we do want to put some color variation in there. The dark parts of it allow the light parts of it to show. And so we don't want to start with the brightest one. We want to start with something that's a little bit softer. But I do want these to show up here. So I'm going to start in the blue and just kind of put some of that over here, but I'm going to grab some of the white and really soften it so it can be a real light blue. Okay, so I'm just going to get a little more white in there and get this little blue mixture going on. So a real light blue for us, just so we can get the indication over the top of some of these darker colors. And that's really what we're doing today, is and continuing through the whole painting, not just today, but we're going to continue to put a dark over a light and a light over a dark to really show contrast and depth and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to start up here where we've got some of this color. And again, I told you to wait till this was dry. This is a little bit wet, so if it's not 100% dry, that's okay. If you pick up a tad bit of the color that's still underneath, those clouds often reflect the colors around it. So the indication of some of those is still okay. Now, all we're going to do is create some little variations. So I really like this brush because you can just sort of twist it and put some things on there. And I want you to think about clouds and how they're formed. So if you don't typically look at clouds and the shapes of them, they're not all round cotton balls. They typically are a little more round on the top, but the edges kind of fade off. And the bottoms are typically a little more flat, depending on how much wind is also involved in those clouds. So the ones that kind of just hang out, they typically sort of fade out in the tips and flat on the bottom and round on the top. So we're going to work with some of those sorts of structures. Again, clouds are not going to be perfect. They're not even, they're not uniform. So we want to adjust this up and down and little bumps here and whatever, some things going on. Okay, so we got to make sure we got plenty of paint going on. And we're just going to start over here in the one, and they're not all going to be the same color as well. So we're going to put the clouds on, and then we can go back and do some highlights, okay? So they don't have to be perfect in the beginning, but I just want to start over here and sort of start in the middle of the cloud, okay? And we're just going to let this play a little bit, okay? We don't really know what it looks like in the beginning, okay? And you can see there's still some of that color underneath. So I'm going to mix a little bit more color, get our blue color a little bit lighter. It really doesn't stand out enough. It almost looks the same color. So again, we do need a darker color underneath so that we can see the light when we put it on top. Okay, so if we need to add a little bit more color in there sometimes, that's okay. There we go. Right, and we're just sort of making the forms of our clouds. Okay, they don't have to be perfect. We just want them to sort of play in here a little bit and have some cool little shapes, and maybe there's a little bump that kind of comes up on the top over here, and who knows what it's really doing. Okay, so we've got sort of a cloud shape going on. Okay, and again, the bottom, they typically tend to be a little bit flat. Now, these ones where we've got a little bit of purple involved, that's okay. Again, they sort of reflect some of that sky, so it doesn't have to be exactly perfect when you come time to put these down, okay? And clouds are very light and fluffy, and they don't always have exact definitions, all right? So we can kind of let this float a little bit here, and this one will have some things going on. Okay, so maybe we want to have a little extra branch here, some things floating up and around. This one kind of floats over this way, maybe up in the clouds over here. So I've made this one fairly big, okay? So it's taken up a big portion of the sky. That's going to look very close to us. So as we come over to the clouds on the other side, we can actually make those smaller and smaller, and we can end up with a cloud that looks farther away as it comes over here. All right, and so we're coming into a little bit of a lighter stage in here, so I'm actually going to take some of this darker color blue that I've got and mix into this. So I'm just going to make this a little bit of a darker color. Not drastically darker, but I do want it a little bit darker so that it stands out. And again, we're going to put some light colors over the top of this so it won't stay like this. Okay, we're just going to use a little corner of the brush here. Indicate some clouds here. Okay. And it's almost not quite dark enough. I'm going to just touch the black. Get that a little bit darker for us. I don't want it to be too much. There we go. Just a little bit. Okay. Those can sort of play and do as they want. Okay, but I don't want it to be too tall. All right, and then as we come down over here, we can make another little cloud. And again, guys, I'm just sort of making some forms. When we come back and we put this white detail on, that's when it's gonna make them pop, okay? So we're just kind of getting some structures going on here. I'm gonna make this side over here a little more blue just because it has the green on it. So this color will stand out very nicely for it. And I want these to be very small clouds. Okay, so I'm not going to make them very big. Okay, and we just want to put a couple different ones. We don't want just a single cloud. Okay. And these don't have to be super big, guys. Okay, I just want to put some little indications of some things going on. Just some little indications. All right. And we're going to cover a big portion of this up, so that's why I haven't brought this down too far yet. So we'll just put a little bit more of a cloud going on there. Maybe one sort of floating around down here. It doesn't have too much going on. Okay, so we've got sort of some layers of clouds, and this one doesn't have a lot of distinction to it. So we can sort of see them playing as we're coming, all right? And a lot of times clouds just get real faint. They don't really have to be too much. Okay, so you can dab, you can brush it a little bit. Okay, and again, we don't want these to be too even. We just want these to kind of overlap a little bit. One plays into the other. Okay, so we've got a few cloud formations going on, and I don't want to cover all this up. I want to keep some of this beauty going on. So I'm just going to rinse my brush out here, get the blue colors off of it, and then we're going to come back in with some white that will really make this pop for us. And this is where the real magic happens, guys, is within this white, and you create this contrast between the dark and the light. Okay, so I'm still just using this same little fan brush. Now, if you're in the middle of something big, you can have the brush flat like this, but you can turn it and angle it and get lots of little corners on it. Okay, and these are the difference makers, these little strokes. Okay, so I'm coming into some, oh, there's some red on there from last time, so that's pink. I was going to say I'm coming into some pure white. Didn't clean my easel well enough. Okay, so let me clean this off a little bit. And I'm going to put some white on another part of this canvas just so I can keep a clean color. So as you can see, I just kind of put paint over the top and wipe it off when I'm done, but I was in a hurry to come back. I was so excited to work with you guys on the next step of this. So, all right, so we've got some clean white here. And I'm going to put a good bit on this because I do really want this to show up first. Now, because these are bigger and these are closer, we want these to be more detailed than the ones that are far away. So the farther away, again, the less detailed and usually the lighter color they are. Okay, so we want our light source to be coming from the left. So that means we want the whitest parts of these clouds to be showing up on the left-hand side. Okay, so we're just going to put some indicators of some cloud forms. Okay, so don't have to worry about putting it on every piece. Okay, so we just want little bits here and there. And again, the lighter it is, the closer it is to that light source. Okay, and I just want to make a little bit of a pop right there, and you can just blend it a little bit. Okay, they don't have to be perfect, but the more detailed they are, the closer it will look. All right, and maybe you just want to have another little piece going on right here, and you get in between, okay, and you sort of blend that out a little. And this one, distinct from this one, becomes individual clouds, okay? And you can blend these with a smaller brush if you want, okay? But these little wisps away from where you're at, okay, these can kind of turn into the next cloud piece for you, okay? And so as you overlap these pieces, this is what creates the individual shapes, okay? So some of these little pieces that are coming in here, we just want them to have a real distinct edge to them so that you can see, yep, there's another little one. And that little piece right there, okay? And the more little differentiations that you have between the lights and the darks, the backs and the forths, that's where you start to see some of that stuff, okay? And now I'm getting quite a bit of light on here, and that's okay. We can always come back in with a little bit more dark and add some of those places, okay? So don't get carried too away, but if you get excited like I'm doing right now, and you just want to put too much in there sometimes, that's okay. We can always add more over the top of that. Okay, so I'm just creating sort of the front edges of each of these little individual clouds. So maybe this one comes all the way down here, and it's just kind of wisping away on the top. Okay, maybe there's another little one. He's just coming in right there. We've got another little piece up here. There we go. Just little bits sometimes, guys. That's all it takes. Little bits. Okay, and it's okay to have some motion in your clouds. Okay, so that one's got a lot of light going on. So I want to leave this brush with the white on it. And I'm going to come back in with just a tad bit of another brush. Let's use this one. So just kind of a small little brush here. And I just want to blend this, okay, just a little bit. And this brush is dry, so it will really kind of spread out that color just a little bit. Because clouds are soft, you know, we don't always see hard edges on them. We don't really know where they kind of start and stop. So I'm just very little bit. I don't want to touch that front edge. Okay, I just want to blend these out a little bit. And you can do this as much or as little as you decide. All right. But again, those real hard edges of that white, you want to leave those. Okay, you don't want to get rid of them. That's what really defines where your cloud starts and stops. Okay, so I'm just blending this out just little bits here and there, so you can see the top just kind of disappears into itself. That's what we're looking for. And brush strokes sometimes are okay in the clouds because it allows them to show some motion. Okay, clouds are not static; they float in the wind. All right. So again, as much blending as you want to do. All right, and I'm still just using very, very light touches. I don't want too much going on. Okay. All right, these are starting to look pretty good. Pull down some of this white just a little bit. There we go. All right, so now if we want to come back in with a little bit darker, sorry, I get real intense with that. A little bit darker color, and this will, again, add a little more dimension to it. I'm just going to use this same sort of dirty-ish brush and touch the black a little bit and come over to this blue. Okay, so we've got our initial blue color, but we want it to be darker. So if you use the same color and just add some black to it, it just sort of will blend a little better, but it will make a darker color that will stand out. Okay, so you've got the light parts. Where would it be dark? Okay, so if I just put a little bit of dark in here and a couple of dabs, all right, then we can throw some contrast in here. Okay, and I'm just sort of putting it in the middle of these blobs here, and I'm going to clean my brush out. This is my little blending brush as well. Okay, so I'm just going to dry it out real good. Okay, get all that paint off of there and just sort of blend this a little bit. Okay, so just tiny. Don't take it all the way. We want just those little bits. Those little dark pieces are really what starts to show some of that contrast. Okay, and this paint is real wet, so it's real easy to get it to blend out. We've got a lot of paint on the canvas here. Okay, so we got to be real careful with our touches. Okay, so we've got these little fluffy areas going on. I'm going to come back with just a little bit of white over the top of that and just kind of create another little ridge of something going on there. Okay, and we can, again, play with these as much as you want, guys. This is your little world. It doesn't have to be the first time you do it and then you made it perfect. Okay, sometimes you have to come back and forth a couple of times. Add another little cloud in there that you didn't see the first time. And we just want to have a little more wisp, maybe, who knows, right? So don't feel like there's a rush or there's a right way or any of that kind of stuff, okay? Totally up to you guys, however you want to do this. So we got a little bit of clouds going on. I'm going to throw a little more white in there just to kind of break up that big area. There we go. Okay, so a little bit of white goes a long way. So we're going to come back to this. Now, if you don't want this to be quite as thick, we'll go ahead and dip just the tip of the brush in the water. And this is going to make it a lot thinner. So all this paint that's already on there, it won't mix it quite as quickly. If you just tap it, it's going to be a very light color. Okay, so this one's kind of closer. We're going to get farther away. Okay, so we're going to have our little brush taps. Okay, and again, the light's sort of coming from this direction. So So if we just get a little bit going on here and create some layers going on, we never know really where things are coming from or what the wind's going to shape them like. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit here. Just a little bit. Okay, beautiful. That one that sort of curls. This one breaks up and it just kind of floats off. Okay, so we're just giving indications of where these clouds are, guys. There's no right or wrong way. Okay, as long as they look soft when we get done, that's what we're looking for. So just these little blends, little indications of something there. All right, we don't want it to be too solid, but we really want to give that distinct contrast of a cloud that's just sort of floating up there and light reflecting off of one of the edges. Okay. We'll just leave this one with a little bit of pops here and there, but we want to soften this a little bit. Okay, so the farther away it is, the less detailed it's going to come out. Okay. So this is also part of the technique of creating depth, is adding that little bit of softness to it. And if you stop and just look at nature sometimes, you'll see what I'm talking about with these hard and soft lines. Okay, I want a little bit more white in here. There we go. That's a good one. Okay. I'm just blending this a little bit so these are nice and soft on the back. I don't know why I get into whispering, but it's soft. Okay. So again, you can always add a little bit more as you see them in there and they're playing their little parts and doing their thing. Okay. So we've got a little indication of some clouds going on, and maybe this one comes out a little farther, has a little bit of back lunge. I like it. Okay. So we never know how a cloud's going to play out. Sometimes it is solid on the tips and sometimes they're soft. You never really know. Okay. So our last one is going to be these little guys over here. And again, we want them to be even farther away. So we want them to be even lighter for the most part. So I'm going to get these with just a little bit of this white and then blend it even more than this one. And I'm going to come back because this one sort of smeared a little bit for me. And so as it dries, I'm going to put a little bit more detail to it. So it kind of comes out a little more like I want it. And that's how this works, guys, is you get to adjust how you want it to look. Okay. So if we've got sort of this as our lightest point over here, all right, we can just have a little bit of indicators of some things going on. Okay. We're just going to put a little bit in here. And these are not going to have too much going on. Okay, and these are going to get real blended. So this is, again, only one way to do clouds, guys. This is not something that, this is the way that you have to do it every time. This is just another method to give some indications of some things going on. Okay. So I just want these little edges to come together. Okay, and that light and that dark is really the trick. Getting those to just fold together to become one situation. And you can blend this as much or as little as you want. And if you need to go back and get a little more color and add to it, you totally can. I'm actually going to get a tad bit of water on this brush. It almost seems a little dry. There we go. Just to blend this out a little bit. I don't want this to be too distinct. Okay, so we just got some indicators. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for anything solid. Okay, clouds are usually very soft when they're in the distance. So this water will help sort of lighten that paint up a little bit. It's not quite so quick to dry. Okay, it also does kind of lighten the color when you put some water on it. So be careful with that if you're not wanting to have a lighter color. Okay, I'm really just blending this down. This stuff dries very quickly when you don't put too much water on it, so, or too much paint. Put some water on it so that it'll kind of loosen up a little bit. And you might have to get a little more aggressive with it to get that to kind of blend in with the drier paint. Alright, that's looking good. Okay, so I'm gonna grab just a tad bit of white on here and just touch these. And just kind of blend this in. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. I just want to sort of soften that a little bit. So I'm just kind of distributing that white around a little bit to sort of soften some of that color. There we go, like that. So we've got a little bit of our lights and our darks going on. So I'm going to put just a tad more of that white on there. I like that effect of it. Alright, we're just sort of blending out here, guys. So I appreciate you hanging out with me. This is our step-by-step painting. So each one of these videos is just focused on one individual piece. So here's our cloud structure, and we're really getting this put together so we can sort of see some of these things going on, and if there's stuff you ever want to go back in, maybe you want a little more of a bump here. That kind of becomes real light up there. Okay, and we can just sort of blend that out. Maybe we'll grab some of that white off of there and bring it down in here, who knows. Okay. And the different dryness levels of your paint will allow you to do different things with it. Okay. So it doesn't have to be the same or uniform. Another little bump down here, just give it a little extra to it. Okay, so just a little indicators of some things going on. I took out too much of the white in there, so a little more. Okay, and you can play with it as much as you want. So really these darks and lights coming over the top of each other and really creating this back and forth motion of where the highlight points are and where the shadows are. That's what we're really trying to bring out in these, okay? So you guys can come back in as this starts to dry, and you can give yourself a little more contrast here and there, however you want that to look, okay? So I'll just play with this just a little bit and kind of finish out some of my clouds, but this is just about the technique, guys. We just put a little bit on here and play with it a little bit. Get the bright points on there. Maybe this one just needs a little more solid to it. It's a little more of a big cloud in there. There we go. Lots of white surface all bouncing off of there. Maybe it needs a little bit right there. Okay, so all the huge holes are kind of covered up here. So again, we can have these be as defined and as gradient as we really want them to come out to be. And again, just these little taps sometimes put in those indicators of another little overlap, another little layer in there. Right? You don't have to get carried away. You have If you just get too much, you can blend it out and have it look however you want. Okay. So we've got some cool little clouds going on. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me during this one. I really wanted to just, again, show you technique. And this is just one little way to make some clouds. These are not perfect clouds. Again, I can sit here and play with these all day, making them look a little bit different and having some more dimension and some more light and some more dark and however you want to play with them. So I also recommend to just let it go at some point. You know, you're never, excuse me, you're never going to get them exactly how you want them, unless you just keep playing and never give up. But sometimes you can make things worse by just continuing to piddle and play and put more and more on it. So we're going to leave this with the clouds that we have today. Again, I definitely appreciate your guys' time coming out and learning some of these techniques. And if you want to paint along with me as we go, I'd appreciate seeing what you come out with in the end. So we'll stop it here, and we will catch you guys in the next video.